So here's something I've been thinking about. What is my favorite beach that I've ever been to? I decided that I was going to rank all the beaches that I've had the pleasure of visiting in my life. And this, on the surface, seems like a task that is totally insignificant and not the best use of my time or mental space, and you'd be completely right in thinking that. However, if there is ever, and I absolutely and positively mean ever, an opportunity to systematically rank things that are even adjacently similar, then you best believe that I'm going to be sitting quietly, spending my precious time doing exactly that. What is more constructive is not that, but harnessing my obsession to research and rank anything and everything to help you, dear viewer, to find the perfect beach to visit this year. Now, a quick side note before diving into this list that I've made is an astute and well-educated viewer such as yourself has probably realized that the video title is referencing the whole United States, but the thumbnail says Southeast. So I'm breaking down this search for the best beaches into a multi-video series where we'll ultimately cover all of the U.S. coastline. But I'm separating the video into four parts, and the parts are the Southeast, the Gulf, the Northeast, and then the whole Pacific coastline. Those are the four different the videos. And ultimately, what we're going to be seeking is the four best beaches in the United States. Something else I wanted to say at the start. Being at the beach and going has been a sacred experience for me throughout my childhood and into my adult life. I'm sure that's the case for you as well and your family. And there may be a certain beach or area that you and your family love visiting again and again because of that sentimentality. I totally understand that. What I am trying to do is set out a few basic criteria to see how some of our favorite and most popular places to go to stack up against each other. So anywho, here's the criteria. I'm going to give you my top 5 picks after researching all of the coastal towns of each region and give the beaches a total score out of a possible total of 100. Firstly, the sand and ocean water itself. I'm going to be weighing this more heavily than other categories, and it will receive 40 out of the total possible 100 points. Secondly, I'm going to rank the accommodations of the area or town, such as hotels, Airbnbs, condos, and the like, for how affordable they are, if there are enough places to stay given the demand of the area, and their overall quality. This will receive 20 of the 100-point total. Third, I'm taking the rest of the area into consideration as far as the restaurants and activities go, where extra points will go to unique experiences such as a good local culture, identity, and how many options there are. Restaurants and activities will get 20 points of the 100-point total. And then lastly, for those last 20 points, I'm going to rank the severity of the traffic, both in the beach towns themselves and the surrounding area, because I know that this is a make or break issue for a lot of you. Traffic gets the final 20 points to make that 100-point total. The higher the score, the better the destination. And by the way, while I am going to be doing my best to be objective and researched, I know that not everyone is going to agree. So feel free to tell me how wrong I am about your favorite beach to go to in the comments below. Now, here are my top 5 favorite beaches in the Southeast. 5th on my list is Sullivan's Island, South Carolina. This town is pure Americana, and it fully embraces that low country atmosphere. The town itself is very small with a population of under 2,000 residents, and it's chock full of amazing little restaurants, ice cream shops, and boutiques. Something that is so important to me about a beach destination is the atmosphere, and Sullivan absolutely nails it. As soon as I drove onto Middle Street during my visit, I saw dozens of families out biking and out walking from one local small business to another. It was perfect. It's like a time traveled back in the best way. There's a restaurant called Poe's Tavern with a few locations, and one of them being here on the island. And I could not recommend it more for the amazing traditional American eats and excellent service. Now, as far as scoring is concerned, let's dive into why it ranks 5th on the list and not even higher. It's a high bar to even just get on the list of all of the beaches and beach towns stretching from the Virginia coastline all the way down to southern Florida. So I think pretty highly of Sullivan's Island to begin with, just saying that. But Sullivan's Island made the cut because of its charming, clean, and inviting small town feel with wonderful biking and walking paths. The island is less than a 20-minute drive to downtown South Charleston, downtown Charleston, South Carolina, rather, which is why it gets a 20 out of 20 on the activity and restaurant section. If truly you could stay for a week in this area and not feel like you have exhausted the area for its activities and amenities. Charleston is one of the best cities in the United States, bar none, for tourists of all ages and party sizes, where you could spend days just shopping, traversing the historic cobblestone streets, which, by the way, for a history nerd like myself, these cobblestone streets and the story behind them could be a video in and of itself, which may be in the future. The Charleston Harbor, Mount Pleasant, the many historic landmarks, and the Arthur Ravenel Jr. Bridge serve as the perfect backdrop for your picturesque Sullivan Island vacation. Even with the immense tourism the greater Charleston area brings, and the traffic is quite manageable, surprisingly, given the demand, but that's thanks to the very clever city planning. That and the fact that there are so many different attractions for tourists in spread out pockets all around rather than a single area or strip that everyone really flocks to. It's a desirable location, as all of the beaches on my list will be, so expect crowds and traffic to a certain degree, especially during peak times. But overall, it's surprisingly manageable, so it gets a 16 out of 20 for me on the scoring. What I am about to say might make or break the trip for you, but here it goes anyways. There's no hotels of any kind on the island itself. If you want to stay on Sullivan's Island, your options are beach houses and Airbnbs. That's it. If you desire a hotel for like its amenities, travel points, or whatever floats your fancy, then you're going to have to stay off island and then make the 10 or 15-minute drive to the beach access points, of which there are plenty. This is either the best thing you've heard, or you're already skipping further into the video to another timestamp, which don't, but at the same time, feel free to check out other beaches that actually have hotels with more oceanfront locations. So having said that, it's great for some people. It's, not ideal for others. So I gave it a 14 out of 20 for the hotels and accommodations. Lastly, when it comes to the beach and ocean water itself, like I said, that gets the highest and most important rating for me with this list and this whole video series that I'm doing, because, again, of its significance of just, you go to the beach to be able to actually see the beach and see the ocean and experience all that. So anywho, I think this is kind of why Sullivan's Island falls to 5th on the list for me. The sand's great. It strikes that balance between soft white and harder packed. It's closer to the shoreline. It's relatively wide compared to many tourist location, but it can accommodate a lot of tourists without feeling too overcrowded. And like I said earlier, there's tons of access points for those not staying on the ocean. However, the water itself is rather murky, and it doesn't have that wow factor that some of the other beaches on this list later on will. So all in all, it gets a 20 out of 40 for me as far as the sand and ocean itself, which brings Sullivan's Island's total score to a 70 out of 100. Fourth on the list is one of the most popular beach destinations on the East Coast, and that's Hilton Head, South Carolina. It made the cut for its distinct setting, low country beauty, and sprawling island that is surprisingly large to explore. There are so many restaurants to dine at and opportunities to shop both at small businesses and outlet malls that are perfect for your vacation. Aesthetics are everything. At least that's what my wife tells me. And Hilton Head has it in spades. Wooden bike paths that wind through marsh to one perfectly decorated and designed restaurant to another. Golf courses that are some of the most highly rated in the country, and extremely wide, hard-packed beaches, perfect for biking on. So it sounds like it should be first on the list, right? Well, there's a couple pretty severe problems to me that hold the beach town back from the top, and both have to do with how in demand Hilton Head is. The island is only 12 miles long, but despite that, it manages to attract 2.5 million visitors a year. There's only one road for those 2.5 million visitors onto the island and back off. And that's right. One road gets you on and off the island that is that small for that many people. The traffic nightmare holds it back for me. Second, due to the extreme demand also, the local hotels have realized that they can put whatever number they want to next to the dollar sign of the nightly rate, and it's still going to sell out. So that means that there's some extreme markups during peak season. There are also a lot of large hotels, which, are oceanfront, both that are local business hotels or chains. But most of them are going to charge eye-watering prices during peak season, during those summer months. So that drags it down. But back to the positives for a second. In case you don't know, there's a place called Salty Dog Cafe. It's basically a religion, as it has made untold fortunes on merch sales that have everyone all over the country sporting their sweatshirts, hats, and stickers. Everyone loves going there, and its cult following is only growing by the day. Also, I just really need to stress just how Instagrammable this island is in case you haven't gotten that yet. It's absolutely pristine and, again, captures that pure Americana feel. Harbor Town is an amazing spot for pictures with the backdrop of the marina and the red and white striped iconic lighthouse. So the score for Hilton Head goes as follows. The restaurants and activities get a perfect 20 out of 20. Hotels and accommodations get a 15 out of 20 due to those exorbitant prices during peak season. The beach and ocean is going to get a pretty high rank here because of the wide, hard-packed sand that allows for biking even and sprawled-out enjoyment. A couple drawbacks, though, is that the water is not all that clear, and the crowds can get pretty overwhelming during peak season with all those visitors. So the beach and ocean gets a 30 out of 40. Lastly, and this is what drags Hilton Head down, there's only that one road that leads in and out, as well as just only one major loop road that goes around the island, which creates absolute havoc during the summer. So traffic gets an 8 out of 20, and that brings Hilton Head's total score to a 73 out of 100. Next up on the list, we are going to travel a bit north to North Florida, bit south to North Florida, to a tiny town called Flagler. Flagler beach slopes just off of the infamous A1A highway down into the Atlantic Ocean. And as far as the beach is concerned, it has the most unique and striking appearance on this list, as the beach is not composed of sand. Rather, the beach is almost entirely made out of seemingly infinite amount of seashells and all kinds of colors, which gives the beach its textured, gorgeous European feel. And I know what you're thinking. Ow, I can't walk on that. There's no way I'm going there, but have no fear. The shells are broken down so small that it honestly doesn't really feel any different than walking on sand. Maybe a little bit more coarser sand, but sand nonetheless. The beach is breathtaking, which is what I love about just how small the beach town is, and the shops and the restaurants that line the A1A down the strip of the ocean. So it's got that old Florida feel. It really makes you want to go back in time, where you just threw your luggage in the back of a station wagon and drove up to a motel with a neon vacancy sign. At least that's how it made me feel. There are some hotels on the beach as opposed to Sullivan's Island, but there's no chain hotels allowed per city code. A huge benefit of Flagler Beach vacation is it's truly not possible to have any issues with traffic. It's essentially just the A1A, some great local restaurants, as well as ice cream and coffee shops, and the pristine beach. I think you'll feel like you're having a more unique and secluded vacation if you stay here rather than the other places on the list. So if that appeals to you, then definitely consider Flagler if you're going to consider any of the beaches on my list here. But if you're wanting to get a little bit more into some things to do, some more activities, then the Flagler Beach area has a trick up its sleeve. And that is if you get that itch to get out and about and see some sights, do some more things, have some more restaurants to go to, just more options in general, then the historic city of St. Augustine, Florida, is only a 50-minute drive down the A1A. And let me tell you something real quick. This drive down the A1A is no joke. There's songs about this road for a reason. It lives up to the hype. Anyways, in St. Augustine, you're going to find everything you would want when it comes to restaurants, and shopping, and a very beautiful city. St. Augustine is the oldest city actually in the U.S., and it was founded all the way back in 1565, over 200 years before our country was even a country. The architecture is beautiful, the food's astounding, and the water is, well, exactly what you would expect for a Florida beach town. St. Augustine has a beach as well, but I think the secret sauce into making this beach trip the third on the list of the best in the Southeast is to actually stay in Flagler while you can still know that a city like St. Augustine is a 50-minute drive, because I just think that Flagler Beach area with the stay options there and being more secluded is a little better than having to deal with the hustle and bustle of a more touristy St. Augustine. So if that's something that's important to you, is to have that unique stay and seclusion feel, then definitely consider Flagler. But the water is clear, definitely, in Flagler, but it's not the most clear. So it's going to get a 34 out of 40 rating for the sand and ocean category. The hotels and accommodations are sparse in comparison to others on the list, which again is either a huge benefit or drawback to you depending on what you want. So that's going to get a 13 out of 20. The restaurants and activities section is a nearly perfect score because the options in Flagler are great. There's the Funky Pelican restaurant and Yes Coffee in town, and the ability to go into St. Augustine for a plethora of more options. So that's going to get an 18 out of 20 for the restaurants. And the traffic kind of speaks for itself. There is none, so 20 out of 20. So that brings Flagler's total score to a definitively higher than the other two. For me, it's an 85 out of 100. So as you could tell, a high bar has been set to even make this list in the first place, and then now we're up into the 80s. So these three beaches have definitely set a standard. So the next two have a lot to beat, but I don't think that these next two beaches are going to have any sort of issue clearing that bar. So going back to coastal Carolina, this time to the north instead of South Carolina, for Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina. That's number 2 on this list. Wrightsville Beach is honestly, arguably, the most beautiful town I have ever seen. I'm not exaggerating. As my wife has said, it's the stuff of Nicholas Sparks's dreams. The marinas and docks scattered all over the town are my favorite part, giving this beach town kind of a New England feel. There's 2 bascule bridges that lead into the beach town that separate the beach side and the mainland side of Wrightsville that are a thing of wonder. I love bridges. There's hidden gem coffee shops like the Workshop and an authentic New York style bagel shop called Beach Bagels and Subs. There's walkways, biking trails, and beach access points everywhere, making the entire beach town genuinely walkable and bikeable if you're up for the exercise. Do you remember Poe's Tavern from Sullivan's Island? And I said there were a few locations. Well, another one of those locations is here in Wrightsville Beach, and it's excellent also. So that's a great option that they have too, actually on the island. And if you want some more chain options, more activities, more places to go, things to do, then all you have to do is go back over those two bascule bridges into the town of Wrightsville, or even take the 10-minute drive into the actual town of Wilmington. And then there's tons more to do and see. Wilmington shares a lot in common with Charleston in that it's also a military city with some old bases as well and ships to explore, as well as both cities just have gorgeous waterscapes. So Wilmington sits on the Cape Fear River, which has great boating options on rich blue waters. A few more things to know about Wrightsville before we get into ranking the beach is I will go ahead and tell you now that it's going to get a high score for the beach and ocean. The beach has great sand that is very clean, and that's all nice. But the beach, much like Flagler, is not very wide, so it can't support vast crowds. So even during peak season, the beach is not going to get overcrowded. So that's a plus. You're going to have that sensational ambiance of a relaxing beach getaway that's not interrupted by crowds. And as far as the water is concerned, I honestly didn't really believe my eyes the first time that I saw the water there. And neither did my wife. So we had to do some digging to figure out how the water was so clear, even considering that it wasn't, a Caribbean beach or some other crazy place in the world, and that's a Carolina beach, but it has such clear water. So it turns out that there's the minerals and sediment in the area don't mix and swirl in an undercurrent as much as water in other beaches do. So it can retain such a more blue and clear, pure kind of, I don't know, whenever you consider going to South Florida or, Caribbean beach, you can have a more exotic feel, but that's not exactly the feel that you get from a Carolina beach or even Georgia or even North Florida, honestly. You don't really have as much of an exotic feel, but you kind of do a little bit in Wrightsville. So it gave a much higher rating for me for that. But lastly, this is just a side note, kind of personal, but I need you to listen carefully when I say this. Gift shops are important, and we know this. And when I go to the beach, I want to get something unique and do it at a great local place. And hands down, the best gift shop in the United States is here in Wrightsville. So go to Reddick's, that's the name of the gift shop, and thank me later. The man that owns the shop is great, and the quality of the items are impeccable, and really it's just great. So you may think to yourself, this is definitely a sponsor thing. He's just, saying that this random gift shop here in this random beach town is great. But no, to me, it is the perfect gift shop. So I'll happily sell out if Reddick's wants to sponsor me. But even if not, I'll just tell you now, it's the best. Go check it out. So here's Wrightsville's rankings, and here they go as follows. The beach is great. The ocean is even better. So I'm going to give it a 38 out of 40, almost a perfect score. The restaurants and activities are also great, especially when you include Wilmington and all the extra things to do there. So it gets an 18 out of 20 for that section. The hotels and stay options are good, but I wouldn't go so far as to say they're outstanding. This is partially due to the small area, and they book up fast and stuff, but also due to some of the hotels being a little older and a little more run down. So they get a 14 out of 20 for me. Traffic here is a non-factor, again, kind of like the Sullivan's Island, Charleston area. There's only minor hiccups during peak season because the road management is clever in how they've designed the city. So 18 out of 20 for that section as well. So the total score for Wrightsville is an 88 out of 100. So now it's time for the best beach of the Southeast. Are you ready? That honor goes to South Florida's own Stewart Beach. There's so many reasons why I chose Stewart as the #1 beach destination on the southeast coast. So I'm going to try to contextualize my reasons to make myself as coherent as possible. So first of all, the water. When I set out to do this, I wanted to make sure that the beach and water is getting the bulk of attention, like I said. So with that in mind, Stewart Beach and much of the surrounding Treasure Coast region of Florida has some of the most breathtaking and beautiful beaches in all of the United States. Stewart and Jupiter, just to the south, combine a few of my favorite elements from different beaches across the world. It captures the typical Florida vacation feel with rocky formations, particularly at Hobe Sound down in Jupiter, that are pulling off a decent impersonation of places like Malibu and parts even of the Oregon coastline. Speaking of Malibu, the water is an extremely bright blue color that it's not really found in other regions of Florida outside of the Treasure Coast, while maintaining a kind of clarity that rivals the Keys. So again, something that is important for me is a beach that's not going to get overcrowded, like I've said, during peak season. And just like Flagler and Wrightsville, Stewart Beach is pretty narrow. It's a small town. That's not going to be an issue here. So I'm just going to say it now. Stewart's Beach in ocean category gets a perfect 40 out of 40 score. So as far as the town's atmosphere, amenities, hotels, activities, restaurants, all that stuff you do for when you're not staring out into the abyss of some of God's best work goes, Stewart has you covered here also. USA Today calls it the second best coastal small town in the U.S., and I could not agree more. I can't agree more. It's quaint and extremely family and couple-centric with great places to eat and shop at. And for people like my wife and I who love nothing more than photography and videography, Stewart is just about the best backdrop that you're going to get. The town itself only has about 17,000 residents, although that number does seem to be on the rise in recent years. There's a lot of new development, but the neighboring areas bring in many more. It's situated less than a half an hour from downtown Port St. Lucie to the north and less than an hour's drive to West Palm Beach to the south. So it really gives you that optionality when visiting to make the trip just about anything you want it to be, rather than other beach towns where you're kind of more locked into a certain kind of experience. You can either decide to really switch gears and to even take a 45-minute drive or so, maybe a little bit more depending on where you actually dock at, to even go to Lake Okeechobee and have a lake day in the middle of your beach trip. So there's a lot of great water activities for the more adventurous, such as even going parasailing with a company called Treasure Coast Parasailing that take off right at the Hutchinson Island Marina in Stewart. But that being said, with the Stewart area not being as tourist-centric as a beach town like Hilton Head or other beach towns not mentioned in this video, you may have not quite as many activities to do as you would in other regions, if that's your thing. So all in all, I give the activities and restaurants category an 18 out of 20, mainly on the quality of the restaurants rather than the total amount of activities. There's still a lot of really great restaurants in the area. So as far as hotels are concerned, Stewart's, like I said, is not really the biggest area, and high-rise style hotels are not allowed per the city's code. So you won't really find that there. There's a couple hotels on the beachfront marina areas, such as a nice Marriott and also a local hotel that's kind of got a reputation in a good way, is the Plantation Beach Club. Condos and Airbnbs fill in some of the gaps, but and there's more stay islands or stay options, excuse me, on the mainland area of Stewart. But just like Flagler, you could definitely have a wider array of stay options if you go to bigger areas, but then you're going to miss out on the unique and less crowded experience. So all in all, I give the stay options a 15 out of 20. Now, with traffic, Stewart is infamous for a few things, and one of them being its roads. If you know Stewart at all, you know where I'm going with this. Traffic is nothing more than a minor hiccup here. And here and there, and it's such a small area, even during its peak season, but that's not why the roads are infamous. In the heart of downtown Stuart, there is a convergence of every major road in the town that culminates in what has been termed Confusion Corner. It's an intersection that you can't quite call a roundabout of, here it goes, Dixie Highway, Flagler Avenue, Colorado Avenue, Ocean Boulevard, Highway A1A, and even a railroad for good measure. If that sounds like a disaster to you, it did to me also. It should be, but the locals have loved it for decades and embraced the chaos, as weird as that sounds. They have chosen instead to use it as an opportunity to show the patience and hospitality of their city to the travelers who are, as the name states, confused. So it's the perfect embodiment of why the town is so inviting. And for that, traffic gets a 20 out of 20 perfect score. And also in the link in the video's description, I'm going to link a video of a CBS News story all the way back in the 1970s. A national CBS News came to Stuart to cover Confusion Corner. And I'm linking it, and I really highly recommend you check it out because I think it's an amazing video that shows the happy-go-lucky attitude of the city. But all in all, that brings Stuart's total score to a 91 out of 100. So let's wrap this whole thing up. My top 5 beaches of the Southeast are Stuart, Florida, Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina, Flagler Beach, Florida, Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, and then finally Sullivan's Island, South Carolina. So I hope that you all enjoyed watching this video and maybe seeing some places that you weren't already familiar with. Consider maybe checking out some of these beaches when you're planning your vacations this year. But one last thing. My mission with this channel is to connect and share the stories of people and places, hence Rooper Stories. I would love to connect with you and share your stories on this channel. If you or anyone you know owns a small business, has a passion project, ministry, or any other kind of story to tell, please let us know by sending us an email to collabrupersstories@gmail.com to share your story, and again, anyone else's story with us. We want to hear from you and connect with all of you, so don't hesitate to send in your story. And remember, wherever you are or whatever your story, may He guide and bless you.
America is our theme this Sunday morning. During the week, I travel around the country in an old bus, trying to find out if there isn't something going on besides floods and wars and politics and other calamities, looking for American originals on the road. I found one in Stuart, Florida, America's most original urban intersection. And so Confusion Corner has been elevated to balladry and folklore, a place where if you are confused, as this man obviously is, you can always count on the patience and good humor of your fellow man to see you safely through. Where else in the universe can you find a friendly place like that?